Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees from Sri Mayapur. And daily Katha on Srimad Bhagavatam. Shri Guru Nitai Gaur Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Narayanam Namaskrityam Namaskrityam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Vede Ramayanishchaiva Purane Bharate Tata Vedavante Chamadhe Chari Savatridiyate Mukam Karade Vacharam Vandam Gayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Paramananda Madhava Padulaluchi Makaranda Semakaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinkanami Vandavela Parikori Vechakadova Sechakadolanka Paraye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Bole Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Bole Jao Jiva Motiru Dada 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 Motiru Dada 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 Motiru Dada 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning, dear devotees. Nice to see Lynn here, and wait to Chandra Prabhu, and Brajabanita, and Madhupati Prabhu. I was just speaking with Naranjan Maharaj about Madhupati Prabhu yesterday. He has a lot of affection for him. I wasn't very surprised to see that. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 3, Chapter 25, Devotional Service. And today's text is number 42. Madhvayat vati vatoyam suryastapati madhvayat varsatindro dahatyagnir mrityus charati madhvayat. Look at Piladev tells his mother, it's because of my supremacy that the wind blows. Out of fear of me, the sun shines, out of fear of me. And the Lord of the clouds, Indra, sends forth showers of rain out of fear of me. Fire burns out of fear of me. And death goes about taking its toll out of fear of me. Srila Prabhupada describes in his purport, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, says in Bhagavad Gita that the natural laws being enacted are correct in all activities because of his superintendence. No one should think that nature is working automatically without superintendence. The Vedic literature says that the clouds are controlled by the demigod Indra, heat is distributed by the sun god, the soothing moonlight is distributed by Candra, and the air is blowing under the arrangement of the demigod Vayu. But above all these demigods, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a chief living entity, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam, Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. The demigods are also ordinary living entities, but due to their faithfulness, their devotional service attitude, they've been promoted to such posts. These different demigods or directors, such as Chandra, Varuna, and Vayu, are called Adhikara Devata. The demigods are departmental heads. The government of the Supreme Lord consists not only of one planet or two or three, there are millions of planets and millions of universes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has a huge government, and he requires assistance. The demigods are considered his bodily limbs. These are the descriptions of Vedic literature. Under these circumstances, the sun god, the moon god, the fire god, and the air god are working under the direction of the Supreme Lord. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Mayad yakshena prakrite suyate sa characharam. The natural laws are being conducted under his superintendence. Because he is in the background, everything is being performed punctually and regularly. One who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely protected from all other influences. He no longer serves or is obliged to anyone else. Of course, he's not disobedient to anyone, but his full power of thought is absorbed in the service of the Lord. The statements by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila, that under his direction the air is blowing, the fire is burning, and the sun is giving heat, are not sentimental. The impersonalist may say that the Bhagavatam devotees create and imagine someone as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and assign qualifications to him, but actually it is neither an imagination nor an imposition of artificial power in the name of Godhead. In the Vedas it is said, Vishashmad Vaktapavate Visodeti Suryaha. By fear of the Supreme Lord, the wind god and sun god are acting. Visashmad Agnis Chandrascha Mrityu Davati Panchama. Agni, Indra, and Mrityu are also acting under his direction. These are the statements of the Vedas. Gora Graganya Gana Gocha Goloruhadam Goranga Guda Tamagopyada Kopa Briksham Gopalagada ratidam yati singha gora Govinda deshikavaram satatam namami Panchakalpatarubhishcha Kripa sindhu vyevacham Patitanam bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this verse speaks about personalities which are spoken of in the Vedic literatures as devatas, which Srila Prabhupada translated as demigods, well, literally it means the gods. In our Western culture, we often poo-poo that idea. We think, oh, this is a silly thing. But we should bear in mind, we should not be have some cultural pride that our culture is the best and we know better than everybody else. We find in cultures all over the world, traditionally people had some conception of different devatas, of a sun god, of a wind god, and different personalities. And although that may sound very backward to us, if we also look at those cultures, we see that in terms of their mathematics sometimes, we see in terms of their construction, for example, in Machu Picchu in South America, the stones are built so perfectly aligned together you can't take a razor blade and fit them in, and there's no mortar there. It's impossible today to build something like that. People are still trying to figure out how they built the Great Pyramids. But these personalities, they had not only some knowledge of construction and astrology and astronomy, but they also had great knowledge about different personalities who were in charge of different aspects of the material universe. Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport, the demigods are also ordinary living entities. Okay, today we'd like to speak something about the demigods and how we titled this, You Can't Please the Lord Just by Becoming a Demigod. Prabhupada says in the purport, the demigods are also ordinary living entities, but due to their faithfulness, the devotional service attitude, they've been promoted to such posts. And again he says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has a huge government, and he requires assistance. The demigods are considered his bodily limbs. So this is an interesting conception for a lot of people in the West. It may seem contrary to our concepts that we have in modern science, but as we pointed out, our modern science is a lot of things which we can't explain. I'd like to examine, though, a little more about the position of the demigods and their connection with Krishna, and the attitude of the devotees toward the devatas. First of all, famously, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yupanya devata bhaktya yajante shariyanvita te pimami vakunti yajanta vidipurvakam. He says, those persons who worship the devatas, and they offer them some worship with faith, it's a vidipurvakam. They're doing it in the wrong way. So this doesn't mean that we hate the demigods or that we think that we're better than the demigods. This is a subtle point, and we should understand this. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes in his Krishna Samhita, subtle discrimination is extremely important for Vaishnavas. So I used to go sometimes to Singapore, and Singapore is a very interesting place. They have, I think it's 4 different religions which are legal according to the government, which are Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, and Confucianism. Excuse me? Buddhism, yeah, Buddhism. Those 4. And if you want to be recognized by the government, if you want to have a legal temple there, you have to be recognized by the particular group. And within the Christian group, they have, for example, the Protestants and the Methodists and the Catholics. There's many different groups, but they're all under one larger umbrella of Christians. And so when the devotees, of ISKCON devotees first went there, they were a little young, and they were staying in different temples. There's a lot of Hindu temples there. And in Singapore, there's some Vishnu temples, Krishna temples, but there's also a lot of Ganesh temples and Shiva and different temples of the devatas. And so when the first devotees went there, they immediately started preaching to the backward Hindus, that they consider to be backward, that this demigod worship is nonsense and you shouldn't do this. And look at me, I know 3 verses from Bhagavad Gita and Yajantavidi Purvakam. This is not a good thing to do. And in that way, they angered and hurt the feelings of a lot of people in Singapore. A few years went by, and they had enough strength amongst the devotees in Singapore that it came time they needed to register the society and start their own temple. So when they went to apply to the Hindu Samaj, the Hindu group, they said, yeah, we know you guys. You guys are a bunch of jerks. You're the ones who came in and told us that all of our demigod worship is wrong. Get out of here. And so to this day, ISKCON's not legal in Singapore. It's one of the very few countries in the world where it's not legal. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in several different places, he comments that the devotee should not worship the demigods, but nor should he disrespect them. So we should understand what is the position of the demigods. The demigods are great personalities. They're managers for the Lord. Srila Prabhupada described in one lecture in Hawaii in 1969, he says, demigod means devotee. There are 2 classes of men in the world. One class is demigod. Who are demigods? Those who are Vaishnavas. They are demigods. Demigod does not mean something extraordinary. Anyone who is a Vaishnava, devotee of the Lord, he is a demigod. That is a statement of Vedic literature. Vishnu Bhakto Bhaved Daiva. Daiva means devata or demigod. So the demigods are Vaishnavas, somewhat like the devotees. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the Vaishnavas give respect to the demigods, but they don't worship the demigods. And as Srila Prabhupada commented in this lecture in Hawaii, that demigod means devotee. Similarly, in another lecture that Srila Prabhupada gave in Geneva in 1974, he said that Vidura was Yamaraj. Vidura is a historical person in the Bhagavatam. Not only he was Yamaraj, but he's one of the 12 great authorities mentioned in Shastra. One of them is Yamaraj, as stated in the Bhagavatam. Yamaraj is one of the GBC of Krishna. As we've got 12 GBCs, similarly Krishna has got GBCs. GBC here, for those of you who may not know, means a governing body commission. That was Srila Prabhupada's management society, management system in the society for ISKCON. And Prabhupada further commented, 12 men are authorized to preach Krishna consciousness, so we have to follow them. Mahajana Yena Gata Sapanta, referring to these 12 Mahajans. Swayambhu, Narada, Shambhu, Kumara, Kapilo, Manu, Prahlado, Janako, Bhishmo, Balir, Vyasakir, Vayam. 12 different, beginning with Lord Brahma, Narad Muni, the Kumaras, and Kapila, Manu, Prahlad. Like this. These are 12 different great personalities. And Prabhupada went on to say, we have to follow them. Therefore, we've created this GBC. And the GBC should be very responsible men. Otherwise, they'll be punished. They'll be punished to become Sudras. Although Yamaraj is a GBC, he made a little mistake, so he was punished to become a Sudra. Those who are GBCs, they should be very, very careful to administer the business of ISKCON. Otherwise, they'll be punished. As the post is very great, similarly, the punishment is also very great. Again, another lecture Prabhupada gave in Los Angeles in 1972, he says, if we don't understand the responsibility, just like in an establishment, one man is promoted. His first charge is doorkeeper. Then gradually he's given promotion. He may come to the post of the manager. Just like in the bank, it so happens. They must go through all the different stages of service. So when he becomes a manager, if he doesn't understand the responsibility, then again he falls to the lowest position. Again, he has to strive for the top. So if we forget our responsibility and become like cats and dogs, then we're going to have to come back again to take the forms of cats and dogs. So we should understand the Bhagavatam describes that we don't want to become a devata. We don't want to become a demigod. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is to love Krishna. And the demigods, they're also devotees of Krishna, and we give them respect for that. But the problem is that sometimes they become proud of their situation. Srila Prabhupada, when he spoke on this verse we were speaking on today, he said a number of things. I'll read a little something from it. He said, when Krishna was present on this earth, he saw that Lord Indra, the Lord of the heavens and of rain, was somewhat puffed up. Indra is considered to be the Devaraj, or the king of the demigods. And he became proud because of that. Prabhupada goes on to say, Krishna therefore advised his father, Nanda Maharaj, not to bother worshipping Indra. He told his father there's no need to offer sacrifices to Indra. It's better to worship Govardhan Hill, who is a representative of God. The cows receive their grass and grains from Govardhan Hill, therefore it's better to worship it. Prabhupada goes on, thus everyone is a servant. No one can claim to be a master. If we simply take shelter of Krishna, we don't have to offer sacrifices to various demigods. But at the same time, the Vaishnavas, they give respect. They give respect to the devatas also. They give respect to everyone. It's described in Chaitanya Bhagavata, Ese Vaishnava Dharma Sabare Pranati, Se Dharma Vaji Ja Iti Nahirati. That this is the Dharma, or the intrinsic quality of a Vaishnava, a devotee of Krishna, is that he gives respect to everyone. But he says that say Dharmadvaji, someone who's a Dharmadvaji, Vaji means a flag, someone who's waving the flag of Dharma, in other words, broadcasting, advertising himself as a devotee, they don't have attachment for that. So our purpose is to please Krishna. Our purpose is not just to become a big manager. In the Bhagavatam, the 7th canto, chapter 7, text 51 and 52, this is described. Nalam dijatvam devatvam vishitvam vasar atma jaha prananaya mukundasya na bhutam na bahu gyata na danam na tapo neja na socha na bhatanicha priyate malaya bhaktya harir anyad vidambanam. This is Prahlad Maharaj speaking to the demons. My dear friends, O sons of the demigod demons, you cannot please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by becoming perfect Brahmins, by becoming demigods, or great saints, or by becoming perfectly good in etiquette or vast learning. None of these qualifications can awaken the pleasure of the Lord, nor by charity, austerity, sacrifice, cleanliness, or vows can one satisfy the Lord. The Lord is pleased only if one has unflinching, unalloyed devotion to Him. Without sincere devotional service, everything is simply a show. Vidambana means a show. And this is a problem we see in religions all over the world. Many people, they're disgusted with religionists because they're putting on a show. And they have some pride that I'm a Christian, I'm saved, and you're just a heathen, and we should deliver you. Or I'm a Vaishnava, and you're just a disgusting personality. But this kind of pride is a very, very bad thing. Prabhupada said in one conversation once in Los Angeles, he said, unnecessary pride is very bad. Some may think, oh, I've become very advanced in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said, that we should never think. And this is a problem with Indra. Indra was the king of the demigods, but Indra became proud of his position. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, therefore, in his prayers to Govardhan Hill, that special hill which the Vaishnavas worship in Vrindavan is a manifestation of Krishna. In the first verse, Raghunath Das Goswami speaks about Indra and his faults. He says that Nija pati buddha dandach chacha bhavam prapadya pratihadamada dristo danda devendra garba atula pritula shaila sheni bhupa priyame nija nikata nivasam dehi govardhanatvam. He says that, my dear Giriraj, Nija Pati Bhuja Dandach, Chatra, you become like a chatra, an umbrella in the hand of Nija Bhuja, Nija Pati Bhuja, the hand of your Lord Krishna. And your purpose, your initial purpose, he speaks about Giriraj as Pratihata Madadristo Danda Devendra Garba. Pratihata means to smash or destroy. The garba, or the pride of Devendra, the Indra, or the lord of the demigods, Indra. And in this verse, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami describes three aspects of pride. He uses four different words for pride. Garba, in general, means pride. But three other words in the same verse also mean pride. And if we want to understand the verse, we need to go deep and understand the subtle different meanings of each of these words. There's mada, drishta, and udanda. Mada means intoxication. All three of these words are synonyms for pride, but different aspects of pride. They also have subtle other meanings. Mada means arrogance. Mada means sex desire. It means intoxication. It means conceit or passion, which comes about because of some position. We see that generally managers, they become very, very lusty fellows. We may ask a question amongst the devotees that how is it that Lord Brahma, who's the creator of the universe and the founder of our sampradaya, he had some desire to enjoy with his own daughter. That's described in the Bhagavatam. But that same Lord Brahma, when he came as Haridas Thakur, he was born in a Muslim family and a very low birth. That same Haridas Thakur, when Maya Devi personified came before him, Haridas Thakur wasn't attracted. This point is made by Damodar, by Bhakti Dhir Damodar Maharaj. Nice point. He said, what's the difference between the two? He said, Lord Brahma had a big position, but Haridas Thakur didn't have a big position. When we get a big position, along with that position, oftentimes comes pride, even a spiritual position. And therefore, this mada is one of the aspects of pride which Indra had, which Giriraj Govardhan defeated. And that mada again means some intoxication. He becomes completely intoxicated by his position. And Indra began thinking that I'm greater than all the other devotees because I have this position. Krishna personally gave me this position. And Indra thinks he's even greater than the Brijbasis. He's accepting the worship of the Brijbasis. And Krishna saw, this is not good. The Brijbasis, the residents of Vrindavan, they're my devotees, they're my family members. They're millions of times greater than this Indra fellow who just has some management position. But because of that management position, he's become proud. He has this mada. And then drishta, another type of pride is there. Drishta means to be audacious. It means to be confident or daring, to be bold. And this is the nature of Indra. He was so bold, he demanded the worship from Krishna's eternal associates in Vrindavan. And the third synonym for garba, or pride, in this verse is udanda. Udanda literally means udanda. It means to hold a stick, or it means to be prominent. And it means to chastise someone. So Indra had these three faults. Similarly, along with three faults of pride, Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu describes that there are three things which destroy pride. Dukkha trasa paradadya, anorjitam tadinata. He says that when someone is very unhappy, duk, or someone has trasa means fear, or aparada dyar, they have a sense of committing an offense, then they develop dainya, humility. So the Lord is not just pleased if someone gets a big position. Just because someone has a big position, that doesn't necessarily indicate the real mercy of the Lord. My Guru Maharaji once said that we give respect to the temple managers, to the leaders in society, just like in Catholicism, they have their bishops and the Pope and different personalities. And people give respect to those persons because that's otherwise how will the organization go on. Similarly, in our society, we have temple presidents, we have sannyasis, we have persons who are gurus, and we give respect to them because if we don't, how will the society go on? But just because someone has that position doesn't mean that we have to have faith in them. My Guru Maharaj said that we give respect to them because they have some leadership position. But you can't force me to have faith in that person. To try to insist that someone has faith in someone else, we consider that to be a kind of spiritual rape. Rape meaning you force someone, you force yourself off on some personality. So you can't force, you can't legislate faith in someone. We have respect for managers, we have respect for the demigods, but we don't worship the demigods. We give respect to leaders in our society, but it doesn't mean that the leaders are my guru. They're a kind of guru in the sense that they're a leader in the society, and any leader, any person that I learn from is a guru, but there's an important difference. My guru is someone that I can choose, whereas you can't choose who your temple president is, who your GBC person is, who the leaders are. They're there and we respect them in society, just like it's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Sanatana Goswami, he was the chief minister for Nawab Hussain Shah, and he was playing hooky, as we would say in America. Hooky means that you're not going to school. He was avoiding his work. Instead, he was hanging out with the Hare Krishna devotees and reading Srimad-Bhagavatam. And the Nawab Hussain Shah finally was trying to understand what's going on. Why isn't he coming into work? And finally, he sent one of his representatives, and the representatives to see what Sanatana Goswami was doing. And he came back and said he's hanging out with all those Hare Krishna people, reading Srimad-Bhagavatam. So Nawab Hussain Shah came there to see what was going on. And Chaitanya Charitamrita describes the behavior of Sanatana Goswami and all those exalted Vaishnavas in that assembly, those Brahmins who were there, when Nawab Hussain Shah arrived. And bear in mind, Nawab Hussain Shah was a huge demoniac personality. He killed many, many Vaishnavas and destroyed many, many temples. He was a Muslim. It's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, though, that when he arrived, Pat Saha Dekiya Sabbe Sambrame Utila Sambrame Asana Diya Rajadev Asaila. That as soon as Sanatana Goswami and all those Vaishnavas saw him come, immediately they all got up, offered him respect, and gave him a seat to honor him. And in his purport, Srila Prabhupada notes, he says, when a person occupies an exalted executive post, one should consider that he's acquired the grace of the Lord. They've gotten that by the mercy of the Lord. It doesn't necessarily mean, though, that that person is my guru. It doesn't necessarily mean that that person is advanced just because they have that. We respect that position because Krishna's given that position to them. We respect Indra. Indrari vyakalam lokam ridayanti yuge yuge. The first canto of the Bhagavatam describes that Krishna comes again and again to protect Indra. But we give respect to him, but we don't worship him. And therefore I say that subtle discrimination is extremely important for Vaishnavas. In the West today, if you, what is the phrase? It's a nice phrase we were speaking about recently. If you have empathy for someone, sometimes they misunderstand that and think that empathy means that you're advocating that person. But just to have empathy or to have respect for someone doesn't mean that we're suggesting this person be a leader or we're advocating for them. We should understand the difference between offering respect to someone for their position and giving worship to the Lord, worship to the Vaishnavas, which always out of necessity has to be voluntary. Well, there's a nice story in this regard I'd like to finish with. This comes from the Uttarakanda of the Valmiki Ramayana. We published this some years ago in one of our issues of Krishna Katamrita magazine. We called the story Curse of the Dog. And it said that on one morning, Lord Ramachandra, he arrived at his royal council. He's the king of Ayodhya. And he had many ministers, such as Vasishtha and Kashyapa Muni and others, different great rishis, learned persons. And Lord Ramachandra called for his brother, Lakshman. And he told him, Lakshman, you go to the door of the palace and see if anybody has any petitions, any requests for us, any problems. And Lakshman went there and he came back and he said, nobody has any problems. Everybody's happy. This is called Ram Raja. Ram Raja means the ideal kingdom. But Lord Ram, as a good leader, he said, no, I want you to go back and look again. Make sure nobody's unhappy, nobody's complaining. And this time when Lakshman went out, he noticed a dog that was sitting near the palace gate, and when the head of the dog was bleeding. And when the dog looked at Lakshman, the dog began to whine in a kind of sad way. And Lakshman asked the dog, hey, what's wrong? Why have you come here? Don't fear, you can tell me everything. This time somehow either Lakshman had some special cities he could talk to dogs, or the dog could talk. But in any case, the Ramayana says the dog spoke to him and told him, I want to speak directly to Lord Ramachandra. I have a complaint. And Lakshman said, if you have some problem, you come. But the dog said, I'm not allowed inside the temple. I'm a dog. I'm not allowed inside the palace. I can't go. And so then Lakshman went to tell Lord Ramachandra, and Ram told him, whoever it may be a dog, but if he has a complaint, you let him in. This is proper management. We see this going on in the world all over today. Although the world primarily promotes democracy, we've seen that it's been misused and abused. And people have gained power and they've become proud and they've tried to discriminate. And so today we have different movements like Black Lives Matter. And that's an important principle because the leaders have misbehaved. And so now the people are protesting and stepping forward about this. But the Vaishnavas just say, don't just leave it with the blacks. What about the dogs? What about the cows? Dogs' lives also matter. Cows' lives also matter. And yes, we should also speak about Black Lives Matter. It's important because we may say all lives matter, but that's a fact. But especially we should consider those personalities who've been abused in society, like women, like black-bodied persons, but also like the animals. And so we see in this story with Lord Ramachandra, he's showing what it means to be an ideal leader. You should care for all the citizens in the country. And it's not that he gives more preference to the high-class Brahmins, but he gives respect to everyone, even the dogs. And so the dog came before Lord Ramachandra, and Lord Ram said, so what's happened to you? And this dog, he said, there was one Brahmin, his name was Savarta Siddha, and he beat me, and he bashed my head and is bleeding. I didn't do anything wrong. So then Lord Ramachandra, he called for that Brahmin, Savarta Siddha, and he asked him, why did you hit this dog? He told him, Krodha pranahara shaktru, Krodha mitramuko ripu, Krodo nahyasya mahatikshna sarvam Krodha patarkshati. That anger, Krodha, is a deadly enemy. It's a sweet-spoken enemy in the garb of a friend. Sometimes we think that anger is our friend, but it's our enemy. It looks like a friend. He says it's like a sharp sword which will destroy everything. Tapate jagate chaiva yaschadanam prayachati krodena sarvam harati tasmat krodam visarjayet. Anger will nullify whatever sacrifices and austerities you've performed, as whatever charity you've given. So we should avoid anger. Why did you do this? And the Brahmin said, well, that morning I had a quarrel with my wife, and I was in a really bad mood, and I came out, and the dog was in the way, and I just became angry, and for no good reason, I started beating him with a stick. It's not the fault of the dog. And so I've done something wrong. Please forgive me. Now, in Vedic culture, the Brahmins are considered to be like the representatives of the Lord, because they do the worship of the Lord. And they're supposed to have qualification. They're supposed to be humble. They're supposed to be learned. They're supposed to possess good qualities. So they're not punished traditionally in Vedic culture. So Lord Ramachandra was unsure what to do. So he asked his ministers, what should we do in this case? And the ministers said, well, I think you should ask the dog. And so they asked the dog. And the dog said, yeah, there's something I would like. I would like you should give this Brahmin, Sarvata Siddha, some nice new clothes, give him a nice garland, some nice jewelry, give him a big elephant to ride on, and you give him a procession, you take him to a nearby village, and you make him the head, the Mahant, the temple president of the Kalanjara monastery. And at that time, all the different ministers became confused. And they said, wait a minute, that's not a punishment. That's a great blessing. And this Sarvata Siddha, this Brahmin who beat the dog, when he heard the comments of the dog, he said, yes, good day. He was very, very happy. And the ministers, they said, but this is not a punishment. Rather, you're giving him some exalted position. And Lord Ram said, no, the dog wants this. So he gave him all that. And Sarvata Siddhi rode away on the elephant to go to become in charge of this big temple. And he's a big, big person now. And the minister said, this is not a punishment. You've given him a reward. And Lord Ram says, you don't understand. The dog understands. And so then Lord Ramachandra asked the dog to explain. And the dog then explained. He said, in my last life, I was the temple president there. I was in charge of that place. And I was in charge of worshiping the deities and in charge of managing the temple there and all the different saintly persons there. And I became proud. And because of my pride, I had to take birth now as a dog, and I'm suffering as a dog. So this Brahmin, Sarvata Siddha, he's crazy. He's off the charts. He's a lot more proud than I am. So if I had to take birth as a dog, who knows what's going to happen to him? Definitely having that position is a punishment. So Vaishnavas don't want to have the position of a demigod. They don't want the position of a manager. And therefore the Bhagavatam says you can't please the Lord just by becoming a demigod. Our purpose in joining a spiritual movement is not just to get some position. Our purpose is to please the Lord. Our purpose is to develop love for the Lord. At the same time, sometimes the guru or the Lord himself may give some position to the devotees. When Maharaj Priyabrata's father, Swayambhuva Manu, instructed him that I want you to rule the world, Priyabrata Maharaj was not very happy about it. He didn't want to do that. But the Lord personally came, Lord Brahma personally came and told him, no, you should do this thing. And so then he accepted that position, but he didn't accept it for himself. And rather, he was always serving all the other Vaishnavas. He was having the attitude of serving everyone. So being a manager, being a demigod even, in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. Rather, it's a position given by the Lord. We give respect to that position. It doesn't mean that we have to worship them. And it's not just that if someone gets such a position that we're going to reject them and think, oh, they're going to be automatically proud because of that. Just like sometimes we see in the West, it's very common that anyone who's a politician, we consider them to be a demoniac person. But that's not a fact. They may be a good person just because they have that position. You can't judge them by that. But in Vedic culture, in Vaishnava culture, if someone has that position, they should use it to serve the Vaishnavas. They should use it to please others, not to try to take some position for themselves like Indra did. So we'll go ahead and stop here now. And maybe some devotees online. Hare Krishna. Subal Sham Prabhu, nice to see you. And Natalia, Hare Krishna is there. Madhupatibu has a comment. COVID-19 clearly shows to those who are willing to accept that Mother Bhumi is a person with emotions and will. For those of you who don't know, Bhumi means the earth goddess. The earth planet is a person with emotions and will. She's annoyed by reckless flying and cruelty to animals. Therefore, she's had her way by sending a coronavirus. She's achieved that flying was reduced by 97%. We have yet to see that people understand that meat eating should be stopped. Well, Madhupatibu was very conscious of this because he can't fly in airplanes anymore because of his heart condition. And we're very sad because now Madhupatibu can't come to India anymore. But it's a fact. The world is becoming a better place now that all the airplanes have stopped and all the crowds and things have stopped. Lynn makes an interesting comment. She says, there's a parallel here to Buddhism in which there are several deities that also function much as assistants under the Buddha with special departments and functions. I'm not an authority on Buddhism. I don't want to try to speak before you on this, Lynn, but I do know in some of my visits to Nepal and places and some of the exchanges that I had with Buddhist monks, and a little reading I've done in Buddhist literature, they also have a concept of Indra and Vayu and different demigods, very much like the Vedic conception. Srimaya Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Mahendra Prabhu, nice to see you. Ramana Sukha Prabhu asks a question. What is the distinction between Lord Shiva, Durga Devi, and Ganesh from the rest of the demigods? Well, just as there are different managers, we may have someone who's a temple commander, and we give respect. That devotee, he's in charge of managing things in the temple. But we give more respect to the temple president. We give even more respect to the GBC. So suddenly amongst different devatas, some are more powerful than others. And these particular personalities you're speaking about, Shiva, Durga, and Ganesh, are all partial manifestations of the Supreme Lord. It's described in the Puranas that Durga Devi is also a manifestation of Krishna, and Lord, as is Lord Shiva and as is Ganesh. They're partial manifestations of the Lord. And so we give special respect to them. But at the same time, we worship them. We worship Lord Shiva, Durga, or Ganesh by giving respect to Krishna. And by respecting Krishna, they're pleased. But it doesn't mean we disrespect those devatas. Lynn has another common question. She says, may I ask, why is the phrase fear of me used instead of something like in service to me? So far, I've not experienced that Krishna leads us through fear. What a nice comment. Thank you. That's a very big topic. Well, some people you have to use a stick. It's just an unpleasant fact of the matter. There's some people who are so low class that if you go and you try to be nice to them, they'll just bite you. And just like I heard once about one person who was taking care of dogs in Los Angeles, and he was taking care of special dogs that had turned on their masters, like pit bull dogs and others who had attacked their masters and become very vicious. And these were dogs, many of whom were beaten by and mistreated by their owners. And so the dogs were very, very angry. And this person, he said that I had to tolerate so much. I get bitten by every one of them. But through love, I can overcome them. But there's some dogs, he said, there's some of them, they just can't, even if I give them so much love and affection, they just take advantage of you. And so there are some cases where someone needs to have a stick. And Lord Kapila Dev, it seems that he's speaking like this today. He's saying that there's certain persons, they act out of fear of me. In his Chaitanya Sikshamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there's 3 different motivations people have for worshiping God. These are Bhaya, Asha, and Kartavya Buddhi. And, 4. And the 4th is Rag. Bhaya means out of fear. Someone's afraid that if I don't worship God, then I'm going to go to hell for eternity. So certain people, they become religious and they become well-behaved. That's good. We want people to be well-behaved. So they worship God out of fear. But that fear is a very low-class motivation. Also, asha. Asha means that I want to get something. I'm worshiping God, and they may chant. I met one person in the parking lot once who told me, you chant this Buddhist mantra, Nyam Myoho Renge Kyo, and you'll get a new guitar, you'll get a girlfriend, you get this and that. In Vedic culture, that's also considered very low class, to worship God to get some personal desire. Better than those two motivations is kartavya buddhi. Kartavya buddhi means when someone worships the Lord out of a sense of obligation, that he's giving me food, he's giving me this body, and therefore I should worship him. That's better than fear and some personal motivation. But the best thing is to worship him out of love. And therefore that's Krishna. Krishna's the topmost personality. And Krishna can't really be approached out of fear. He can't really be approached out of asa. He's approached out of love. But to manage the universe, sometimes the stick has to be used. And there's some people who work well with that. Just a second. Mitravinda's made some nice transcribing points here. Thank you for doing that. Hare Krishna, Radhanath Prabhu, my old friend. Nice to see you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. I hope you're doing well. Who was it I was speaking with you about? Oh, I was speaking with you with our friend, a mutual friend, Devamai Mataji from Los Angeles. I think she knows you. She's here right now in Rasamita Kunj in Mayapur. Mitravinda Mataji's commented, when a person acquires an exalted executive position, so we assume they've gotten a position by the grace of the Lord, it doesn't mean that they're guru. We respect, but we don't worship them. To have empathy or respect does not mean that we're worshiping them. It has to be voluntary. We may even worship them. We may worship the Vaishnavas, but we worship the Vaishnavas because of their position with Krishna. We worship the Vaishnavas because they chant Hare Krishna. We worship them in connection with Krishna, not separate from Krishna. We may worship Lord Shiva and Durga and Ganesh, but we worship them because they're devotees of Krishna. Madhupati Prabhu has commented. He says, Shiva Ram Maharaj once said in a podcast that to be in a management position is a curse. It's a very, very difficult thing. That's a fact. Balaram Prasad Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Thank you for your nice comments. Anupani Radha, you have something?
I just have a question. The previous
Speak really loud. Maybe you can even come up close.
So he describes it 3 types of approaching, and out of, like, if we're doing it as a duty, it's the best. It's better than if we're doing it.
4 types of approaching, but I focus mostly on 3.
So, but it looks like it describes demigods, but they're devotees, and it sounds strange. They're kind of low kind of persons. I'm just confused about this.
So the devatas are described as niṣkāma-bhaktas. Yeah. They're devotees, but they have some personal motivation. Now, if we continue with this section of the Bhagavatam, which I'd like to, in a few days we're going to come to the 26th chapter. And Lord Kapila speaks some things there about mixed bhakti, mixed devotion. They're worshiping the Lord, but they're doing it because they want some position. They're doing it because they want some prestige or something like that. That's like being a demigod. But because that personality is a pious person, then they're given some position. And we see Srila Prabhupada often did that. He gave positions to different devotees who were pious and had some expertise. And sometimes it worked out very well, but sometimes they became proud. So we should understand that we can't please the Lord just by becoming a demigod. Our purpose is not just to become a demigod. Our purpose is not just to become a manager. If we're thinking like that, there's something wrong. Our purpose is we want devotion to Krishna. If the demigods, we give respect to them because they're leaders, but they're mixed devotees. Is that okay? Does that make it more clear? A little bit. What's not clear?
I just want me to clear that they're pious persons and they're devotees. They have some devotion to the Lord, but still, according to this verse, they are acting out of fear.
Right, because they're mixed devotees. their devotion is not pure. Their devotion is not based upon rag, which is the best way to approach the Lord, just simply out of devotion, and therefore they can't understand the Lord
But
properly.
it looks like even not out of sense of duty.
Not even out of duty, right? Out of bhaya.
Yes,
But those persons who are approaching the Lord out of fear, they're also devotees.
mhm.
We also give respect to them. It's just not the highest thing. It's just like if you have a friend who really likes you because they're afraid of you, because they think, God, Anapani Radha is going to beat me up if I don't be her friend. You know, she's so intimidating. And someone wants to be, or they want to be your friend because you're such a wealthy person, you know, or you're the most glamorous girl in the school. They want to, you're not attracted by that kind of desire for friendship. And there may be someone else who's your friend out of duty. Well, that's okay. That's better. At least you're not afraid of me. Being afraid of me is weird, right? And someone just wanting something from me, being my friend, that's disgusting. But the best thing is in someone who loves me for myself. And that's bhakti. But it's not that bhaya, asa, or karta vibhuti, those persons who are approaching with those motivations are not devotees. They're also devotees. Okay? Krishna, can you have something? Yeah. Speak really loud.
I was just reflecting.
I don't think I'd ever hear you.
I was just reflecting on this exact point that the demigods or anybody in position who worships the Lord and gets a position. Clearly, that's the Lord's mercy. We've heard about this. Sanatana Goswami stories that Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the Bhagavatam says it. But it seems that the Lord accepts that worship in his position as God. Krishna accepts, no, it's not Vrindavan Krishna who accepts that, and
Yes.
therefore the reciprocation is not the
Not the
reciprocation that you would get from Nandananda and Krishna. However, when you actually please Krishna, then the reciprocation is a different thing. And this verse that you quoted from Bhagavatam 7, 51, 52, where it says that Brahmanas, demigods, great saints, etiquette, sacrifice, austerity, cleanliness, vows, none of them can please the Lord. But the Lord is pleased only if one has unflinching, unalloyed devotion to him. I was marking this point, and without this is simply a show. Simply a show means
Loud.
Simply a show means that Krishna doesn't accept that. It's not for him. It's meant for someone else. It's meant for looking good. It's meant for getting something. It's meant for some other reason. So why should Krishna accept it? But God accepts it, and God reciprocates. But Krishna doesn't accept it. So if we want to attain Krishna, then we need to come to this rag motivation, that just doing things just out of love for him. And I also have the last sentence in this verse is, without sincere devotional service, everything is simply a show. So I looked at the Sanskrit is amalaya, spotless devotional service. But the word sincere has a Latin origin, and it's interesting. Sincera means without a crack. And it's coming from the times of Michelangelo.
Is it speaking about that?
Srimati Mataji.
Srimati.
I wanted to quote his name later.
Thank you.
Yeah. This without a crack means that sincera, at the time of Michelangelo, the marble, they used to kind of fake it a little bit, fill up the gaps and fill up the
Just
cracks.
let me ask a question. Can someone comment, Madhupati Prabhu or Lynn or someone, can you hear what Krishna Kund is saying? Or can you hear it on a piney? Someone can let me know. I would appreciate it. Keep speaking, Krishna Kund. It's a nice comment.
So without a crack, it means that it's real marble. It's not a type of marble where the cracks are filled up and then you make a statue and the whole thing will fall apart, or it will be ugly because so without duplicity, that's for Krishna, we need to become like that.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's the only way to worship Krishna. Such a nice point. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll stop there. And tomorrow is Tuesday, so we'll also be here. The next verse. Lynn commented, thank you for that. She said she can barely hear. Madhupati Prabhu says he can hear well. Madhupati has spiritual ear. Candra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpa kripa sindhu bheva cha